You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to episode 238 of Flipping the Bird. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Zach Chavalella. How you guys feeling this morning?
I could say with confidence, Brian, that you're probably the only person here. Because I don't know if Zach keeps count with you, but I know I certainly don't. So whatever number you say, present it to the people.
I got it wrong. It's actually episode 239. I missed it by one.
To be honest, I don't even know what number we were talking about. I completely checked out.
I'm just happy to be here.
Yes.
I just work here, but I'm also just happy to be here.
I'm here so I don't get fined. How you guys feeling today, man? I see Zach rocking the little man bun in the back.
I've already had a morning. I was up about crack of dawn, getting shit done, and I don't know, man. I'm excited for Eagles stuff because
you're going through a war right now with Sixers stuff. We can put that out. It's a battle,
tough, man. It's tough, man. And there's so many, I'm not gonna name names. There's dickheads in the media that I don't feel like listening to anymore.
I know the names.
I'm not gonna name names. Marcus.
I'm done with it. I'm done with it, man. It's not. I will say this. I was not talking about Marcus, and Marcus is a very nice person in person. That being said, that article was a bunch of shit, but he's a very nice guy in person.
You know what? I can respect that because as a writer, what you want to do is write something compelling, and you want to write something that's going to get a reaction. But I don't know if you want to write something that's like that full of.
It's a very tough balancing act. You really have to read that gray area so delicately. But sometimes guys go too extreme with it, and it's they get into a whole Batman animated series where they, Joker and Riddler and Penguin all showed up at once.
Yeah, and the Riddler too. Can't forget about him.
The Riddler is my favorite part of Batman.
I think it was, and this is something that's important.
It was too. You can say it.
It's not completely unrelated, just to the kind of general ethos of what we do, which is talk about sports. But I want to say it was OJ, and that's I gotta check with if I'm pronouncing his last name right. OJ Spivey.
I think it's
who of course. Spivey, I know OJ so well. I got to double check with him if I'm saying his fucking name right. But so anyway, I think it's something OJ said, and he probably got it from somewhere because he just collects information. But he had a tweet I want to say a few weeks ago where he was people need to understand that there's a difference between a journalist and a columnist, and I think that's kind of what we're kind of crossing into here, right? So a journalist they report, journalist works in facts, columnist works in opinion, a columnist works in getting readership. That's a bit of the difference there. So it's I think that's kind of the situation at hand.
It's a very fair point.
And there's there's journalists, columnists, and then there's us.
We just
and then
put the birds. That's all.
Yeah,
we're the in betweeners.
And then there's Maud.
Brian, how have you been, man?
I'm alive. I'm well. I can't
I
go
feel that. I feel that too early.
Alive and well. I like it.
It's Saturday morning. If you hear any ruckus in the background, my puppy's destroying her bowl at the moment. But speaking of destroying, the Eagles take on the Jaguars tomorrow. Doug Peterson comes back to the link. It's Kelly Green Day. Eagles also are going to induct Shady McCoy into the Hall of Fame at halftime, which is pretty freaking awesome. Jaguars, though, are coming into this game limping. Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis are game time decisions. Christian Kirk is out. Trevor Lawrence is still trying to figure out why he was the number one pick. You can honestly say this feels like a bit of a trap game, but it's also, I don't want to say it's a must-win game, but this game for me is very important because they come up next week is Cowboys, and after that it's Commanders, and then Rams and Baltimore. So you're coming up on a string of games where it's like, you should win more than you should lose, but at the same time, like, you got to be very delicate. How are you guys feeling about this specific matchup going into Sunday?
Well, I know when I hopped in on Tuesday, I gave a brief thought before I ran back to Flyers Bruins coverage. Surprise, they played each other again today at 1 p.m. However, on the gist of what I said was that the Eagles defeating the Bengals was a game where they had momentum, and they're showing some true momentum, and you can start to kind of see the team is kind of finding their groove. I think this is a game against the Jaguars where I don't see it as a trap game. I kind of see this as a game where I'm kind of expecting the same results. Now, whether it's that by that same kind of margin is one thing, but I think we're going to see the same sort of, bread and butter smoothness, if you will, from the Eagles against the Jaguars. The Jaguars are a team that I wouldn't say is, better than Cincinnati. So if you could put that performance together against Cincinnati, I'm expecting it versus the Jaguars. But what turns into the trap are the teams that you mentioned afterwards, because then it's really your first actual run through of the division. Yeah, they had the Giants. Yeah, you had the Saquon game. But then you start to enter that territory of, okay, now you can't let Dallas all of a sudden be like, some sort of like halfway decent team or even mediocre or whatever other synonym you want to throw in there. Additionally, you got Washington, and I'm not going to sit here and say Washington puts the fear of God into people, but Washington is showing to be a better football team than what anybody was willing to give credit for. Dare I say, in my world, the Washington Commanders are the Philadelphia Flyers of last year. No one gave them the expectation. They're playing above expectation. So we're entering the trap season. I don't think this one is it, though.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's going to be a lot of looking ahead to future weeks, these divisional matchups. I hope the fact that Doug Peterson's returning to Philadelphia, the fact that they're wearing the Kelly Greens, they're doing the Shady McCoy ceremony during the game. I hope that's enough to bring focus to Sunday, right, for this team. And it's something that, you see teams do. It's cross sport. It happens throughout where, you tend to underestimate, not properly prepare for someone who clearly looks like an inferior opponent, right? So we've seen that with the Sixers. They lost to the Raptors without half their good players and the fucking Detroit Pistons. Like, you see that, right? And so for Philadelphia, you're going up against this Jacksonville team where, not only are they just flat out bad, but they're also seeing injuries to some of their top players. I would be shocked if Brian Thomas played in this game, just based on the nature of the injury. I know he's day to day, game by game. I would be surprised personally. It doesn't mean
Didn't they announce him as out for the season? Like when he first got injured.
I think it was weeks. I think it was like 4 weeks, something like that. Or it might have just been like just before IR. But in any case, so I do think that there is some significance to that injury. So I would be surprised to see him play, but again, it's not impossible. More so, what I would say, and I understand they lost on Nick Foles night, and we're not. I know I brought them up, but let's not talk about the Sixers anymore. Let's try and put that to bed. Let me leave work at work. All right, I'm taking the night off. I'm not even going to the game. I'm going to be talking to freaking Ray Didinger and Jay Wright. I'm going to have a much better time tonight than I would be if I was going to the game. So let's just forget about that today.
Oh yeah.
So back to the Eagles. Just make sure that you have that focus, against this team, because the last thing that you want to do is, all right, Marshawn Lynch. Let's rein it back in. The last thing that you want to do is you want to let a guy like Evan Ingram go off. The last thing you want to do is you want to let Trevor Lawrence dink and dunk all over the field. The last thing you want to do is you want to let Tank Bigsby go off for a big game, especially since I just traded him in fantasy football. That's really the last thing that you want to do. And then, a guy like Travis Etienne, who's going to be coming back, has had a very tough season. You don't want him to get his get-right game against you, right? And then on the other side, Jacksonville's defense is not good. That being said, there are certain individual playmakers, who I think are quite talented. I mean, you're obviously talking about a guy like Josh Hines Allen is incredibly talented. I'm an Andre Cisco fan personally, safety, for Jacksonville. The Eric Armstead is on the team. Obviously, Trayvon Walker. Yeah, I gotta say, I never get. That's always the one. Like of all the recent number 1 overall picks, I can never remember many details about Trayvon Walker, but he is performing. Like that's the crazy thing about it. I think it's just the Jacksonville effect that kind of keeps him, So Trayvon Walker, who cares? That's what I'm saying. Anyway, the point is they have talented playmakers, right? So you don't want them to kind of gain that inspiration, from going up against, David and Goliath, facing their coach's old team, playing on the road when everyone's counting them out. You don't want them to get enough bulletin board material effectively where it's like, all right, well, now you actually have something to worry about. So I do think that it's potentially a trap game. But listen, the Eagles go out there and take care of business. It's going to be a blowout.
And it's interesting, right? Both teams are on different sides of the ball in this factor. Where Jaguars, like you mentioned, defensive, they have the talent there. They have the pieces in place to be an actual competitive team. Eagles have the talent there, have the pieces in place, and actually coming into their stride. Where you're seeing guys like Josh Sweat do his thing, N'Kobe Dean, Jalen Carter, the rotation coming into full fruition with everything that we expected them to be. Going into this game, who are your key players? I mean, I personally feel like it's going to be my thing is not so much a key player, but a key ingredient is going to be the run game. I want to see exactly what we saw last week where, Jalen's on the center. You're seeing Saquon be the bell cow running back. You're seeing play action incorporated. You're seeing short passes in the middle of the field. I feel like you don't have to stray so far away from last week's game plan to be successful this week.
I'm going to say that my key player is going to be Devonta Smith. And part of that has to do with, and I believe I'm correct during the matchup. I mean, if I'm wrong, then, we can always switch receivers because it's just, let's just stick with the receivers on this and just say, my number 1 matchup here is going to be Devonta Smith. Number 2, obviously, is going to go to AJ Brown, but it's going to depend for me personally on whoever the Jaguars want to put Ronald Darby on. Because that's obviously the matchup that I think Eagles fans are going to sit there and go, what's Darby doing still? What's he up to these days? As far as away from the skill position is concerned, it goes right back to guys like Fred Johnson, goes right back to guys like Tyler Steen. You got to keep attacking on that line. It kind of goes to what you were saying. If they keep attacking on that line, you're probably still going ahead and, getting Barkley the ball and chunk yardage. But, Martian, Ronald Darby is absolutely on the Jacksonville Jaguars 2024 roster. And there's that. There is that. So, yes, that is my package of matchups to watch.
You guys know when you play Madden, right? And, you look into the free agency pool and there's just all these players. You're like, that guy's still, like, why is he still in Madden? Like, he doesn't even, like... Like that's kind of Ronald Darby at this point, if we're being honest.
I remember. You remember, okay, I'm gonna throw this back to the beginning real quick. Remember, I think it was NFL the 2K series, like the 2K3, 2K whatever. So
best NFL games ever made. Yes.
Yeah, honestly, I remember playing head to head at one of my best friend's house in high school, and then actually taking a look at the free agents, and Steve Young was there. I was like. I didn't know why, but he was there. Steve Young, Warren Moon. I'm like, no way. No way these people were even available. So
you got the unlocked version.
No, they were just there. It was just as is. So it was funny because we played one franchise mode. We were on the same team and our quarterback got hurt. I was like, yo, go get Warren Moon. So that's pretty much story on that.
Well, what's funny though is that you think about all these players who they continue to put in time after time after time. I do wonder though. I feel like I didn't see Jason Peters in the new Madden game, and yet there he is signing with Seattle's practice squad through the season.
I think he's in there. I think he's in there.
Well, I'm sure he's there now, but I didn't know if he was there to start the year. And it's just crazy that you have a guy like that who's just still continuing to come back.
It should be illegal for Jason Peters to still be playing football at this age.
I will say this from the Super Bowl team, I think was about the last season where Jason Peters was like playing the full game most of the time at least. And then after that, it was like, yo, I only play like I play 30 minutes a game, period. I don't care.
He got an offensive
like
line
it's in his contract. He's like, I play half games. I'm a half dude. Like right now,
Jason Peters also racked up the most.
I don't think he'd go around saying he's a half dude, but yeah.
Okay, well, you know what I mean. Like literally as far as like playing one half. Also, Martian, yeah, that was Steve Old. It was not Steve Young by that point. So you're right.
That is correct. Anyway, circling back to matchups and focal points and things such as that. I mean, for me, like the thing that I'm watching is the defensive line. Specifically, I want to see this pass rush, right? So week after week, we've seen this pass rush, kind of improve a little bit, especially over the past 3 specifically. This is another matchup against a weak offensive line, especially as the Jaguars just traded their blindside tackle, which is a crazy midseason move and a real sign that they have just given up on the season. If you do not capitalize on this, that is worrisome for the idea of the pass rush moving forward, right? Now, there's the trade deadline that's going to be coming up a couple days after this game. I think regardless, they should address the pass rush at the trade deadline. But the way that this game works out is going to influence just how big of a move you make, basically, right? So, basically the difference between a Zadarius Smith or an Arden Key, like that's what we're talking about here. Like Arden Key plays for the Titans, for those who don't know who Arden Key is, which I imagine is like 95% of football fans in general. So like that's going to be the difference for me is like, can this team continue to generate pressures in the pass rush? Can Nolan Smith continue to progress? Can Bryce Huff continue to kind of contribute? Can you get some of that interior pass rush going? Whether it's a guy like Jordan Davis, obviously Jalen Carter, trying to get him as involved as much as possible. Continued progress from guys like Thomas Booker, Moro Jomo, and obviously Brandon Graham is just defying father time left and right. But ideally, I'd like to find a way to get Graham less snaps so we can better preserve him for the long run of the season. So if I can see that kind of step up from the pass rush, basically, all the questionable guys, right? The Nolan Smith and even the Kobe Dean and blitz packages. Like Dean's been a great blitzer this year, so I'd like to see that continue as well.
To your last point there, Zach, about Brandon Graham, I agree with it 100%. However, I will answer that with what Vic Fangio was saying on, I guess it was October 29th. He stated that he is not actively advocating for an acquisition on defense ahead of the trade deadline, and added to that, it's hard to improve your team drastically at this time of the year. So I do kind of see to the point of what you're saying, like how you probably should add to the pass rush. To your, I guess, suggestion from the Titans, do you believe that if you were to add him, it would be such a addition or acquisition that it's impactful for the playoffs for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I think it would be impactful. I mean, so Arden Key, right, is a rotational linebacker, outside linebacker. Like that, that's what his role is going to be. Like, so Arden Key is that low end as opposed to a guy like Josh Hines-Allen, for instance. If you add a guy like Zadarius Smith and Josh Hines-Allen, which I don't even think the Jaguars will trade Hines-Allen, though they should. But if you add a top tier guy like that, that's the guy. It's like, oh, I got to start him. I got to play him, X, Y, and Z. I don't even think Vic Fangio wants to do that. Exactly to what you said, Eric. I think that if anything, he would want a guy that he can kind of throw in on rotations, somebody who plays the linebacker position instead of just rushing the quarterback, which is something that Vic has obviously said earlier this season. And I think a guy like Arden can do that. He's not the only one, mind you. Like I think there's a few different guys like that throughout the league, and you're going to be trying to kind of pilfer guys across some of these bottom feeding teams, whether it's the Titans, the Patriots. I mean, who knows? You may even go with kind of an interior pass rusher and get a veteran guy like Calais Campbell's a guy I mentioned on Tuesday. If the Dolphins lose to the Bills, which there's a good chance of, they're suddenly 2-6 on the season, right? So that's going to be kind of tough to come back from. So for an expiring veteran, maybe that's a guy that they end up moving off of. So that's more so where I think Philadelphia goes here is they look for either a veteran presence or really either way, kind of more of a situational guy. It's just a matter of I really do think they could go any spot on the defensive line, right? They can get a true defensive tackle, they can get an interior defensive rusher, or they can get an outside pass rusher. Like any of those options, I think, are on the table for Philadelphia. But I do think the one constant theme is that they're going to be looking for a rotation guy as opposed to a star at the deadline.
And I think that makes so much sense, right? Because we've spoken about this countless times where it's like Gannon had the advantage of a talented rotation. I feel like, if you're making a move, you're adding a guy that you could throw into the mix and not, give a heavy amount of snaps to. He could spell a guy like Joshua. He could spell a guy like Bryce Huff and things of that sort. It doesn't hurt to add to the rotation. I think this team could benefit greatly from a rotational player, but it's just a matter of, who that player is at the end of the day. So I completely agree with everything you just said. Offensively, I think we offensively, you guys have any concerns going into this game against the Jaguars?
Not concerns. There is one more shout out to a Eagles player that I do want to give, and that is absolutely the Grant Calcaterra. So I do think that not necessarily that. Well, you know what? Let's just say this. Let's go out of our way here real quick. Grant Calcaterra receiving touchdown against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's had a pretty good job of finding space. And when he's in space, he yards after the catch looks pretty swell. I think that this is a week where the Eagles try to find him some room in a red zone versus the middle of the field, which is a little bit easier to find space, obviously.
It feels like he's due for a touchdown at this point.
I think you want to get him that, especially if, you don't know how much longer a guy like Dallas Goedert's going to miss time. So to me, it's a coaching move where it's like, hey, I'm going to reward this guy for his efforts because he's, in my opinion, been pretty fantastic in the time that Goddard's been out. I mean, since week 5, you've had 4 catches, 67 yards. That's a 16.8 per catch average against Cleveland. Then, against New York, he was fantastic in the blocking. It wasn't really receiving. So it was just 1 catch, 5 yards. And then last week, 3 catches, 58 yards, 19.3 average versus Cincinnati. So you're looking at the Calcaterra, and it's just a guy that there was something there as far as Sirianni would say regarding his rookie camp, but he's been a fantastic depth, and it's something that I'm looking forward to, seeing a reward come his way in terms of a touchdown.
I too like Calcaterra. No, but with Dallas Goedert, obviously Calcaterra is going to have a potential role to play again, and I am equal parts excited and hesitant about the ascension of Grant Calcaterra solely for selfish reasons. As I do think this is the last season for Dallas, and that's not necessarily the issue at hand. More so, I really want the Eagles to draft Tyler Warren next year. And if Calcaterra keeps this up, I don't see that happening. I think Tyler Warren would be fantastic on this team. You're probably going to have to get him, if you're lucky, in the 3rd round. He may even go higher than that. I don't see Philadelphia using a 2nd-round pick on a tight end this upcoming draft. But if you can get him in the 3rd round, I'd love it.
What round did we draft Goddard in?
His second round. Yeah, so it's not the idea of getting a tight end in the 2nd round, period. It's just with the needs on the team. I don't see them going tight end 2nd round this upcoming year. So, looking at how the draft may fall, it may not be an issue anyway, but I would be a bit disappointed if Tyler Warren's on the board round 3 and they pass on him. Although, I will say, Calcaterra is definitely playing as a guy who deserves to keep that spot in going into next year as well.
Tyler Warren is from Penn State, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so this Penn State, I mean, I'm pretty bad with what offenses these colleges run. As long as Penn State's running a pro offense with a tight end, I am all for it. Because those are the tight ends that kind of seem to transition to the NFL the best, I think.
listen, this dude is out receiving star wide receivers. Like,
Wow.
just his usage rate is absolutely insane. So, yeah, it's someone who I think he's like top
Is he a
30
player
or
that's
something like that.
is he
He's top
popping
30
off?
in the nation in receptions.
I
Is he
would say
popping off
then that
before
he
the
probably
offense
doesn't even make
starter?
it to the third round, like you're saying. So yeah.
Well, I know. Like that's the thing. Is like I think like initial season projections had him kind of there in the third round, but he's like, especially after the season that he's had, I don't think he's going to last that long. So
Right.
we're talking about a guy who like legitimately could go like mid second round here.
Do you feel like he's going off just because of the offense that he's in, or
Well, listen, like, all right. So I'm a Penn State fan. You know, just I had to pick a team, and that's who I ended up going with. I didn't go to school like that, so I ended up just whatever the case. So basically, what I'm getting at is, as someone who watches Penn State, I am not a Drew Aller guy, and so I feel very highly on Tyler Warren because I'm not a Drew Aller guy. So it's like Drew Aller is the quarterback. I should specify that. So I like you watch the guy throw the ball, and there's times where it looks like shit ugly, if you ask me. So I'm not a big believer in, and he has like legitimate pro prospects. Drew Aller does, but I don't feel confident in him. I wouldn't draft him if I were an NFL team. So all that just goes, to say like maybe you can say that he's over reliant on Warren at that point, and that's why Warren, maybe his stats get puffed up. But to me, that's why I have even more confidence in a guy like Warren, is because he's got Drew Aller throwing the ball.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, is it time, Eric? Or
Not yet. Not
okay.
yet. I think we can talk about a couple more things real quick. And this is just a little bit of what Sirianni was talking about yesterday. And he gave his flowers to Doug Peterson. I think this is a pretty big statement in terms of kind of talking highly of Doug Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people look back and reflect back on Peterson and maybe don't have the best taste in their mouth in terms of how it all ended in Philadelphia. I will say this, and this speaks so highly of him just in terms of coaches and across the league and the kind of the club that coaches are. So basically, Sirianni said Peterson was helpful with me with people on the roster and how the building is. It was something that he always admired about Peterson, and Sirianni jokingly but kind of teased, if he put himself in that scenario, would he help out in the same way as Peterson? Which brings up a good point, because Peterson never had to help. Why would you help the opponent? Why would you help your competition? And he still did that because he played as an Eagle. He coached as an Eagle. He brought Philadelphia their first Super Bowl. He wanted to leave what he loved in the best condition before he went elsewhere for a new job opportunity. And again, I think there's a lot of his kind of leaving statement on that is most coaches excel because of other coaches. So how much of the immediate success from Sirianni is part of him? Because dare I bring up the Sirianni stuff? Sometimes you, sometimes me, always us type of deal. I think from the very beginning that still had a little bit to do with Peterson, and then they escalated to the roster. By the way, the whole thing, the sometimes you, sometimes me, that was actually some of what did he say? Johnny Wilson wore a T-shirt, so it's always the Sirianni and the T-shirt and the inspirations. But it kind of always kind of fits the theme here. There was a little bit of help, and I think this weekend we're going to see two coaches that respect the hell out of each other. And dare I say, before we do get to our prediction time, thank you, Doug Peterson, for kind of helping Sirianni take liftoff, and because I do think it's going to come tenfold with Sirianni and the Eagles, turning around and pretty much dismantling Jacksonville this weekend.
It's interesting that you brought. Sorry, it's interesting you brought up the Doug Peterson stuff, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but after the Darren Sproles interview, right? And I hate to bring up this topic, I have a really bad taste in my mouth with how things ended, because it's kind of like if Wentz did really, if Wentz sabotaged himself, sabotaged the Eagles after the Super Bowl win in his own selfish efforts, then I feel like it kind of sucks that we didn't get to keep Peterson and see what Peterson and Jalen Hurts could have done. And it makes more sense that Jalen Hurts was a Peterson pick. So it's kind of like, damn, like we lost a Super Bowl coach because we had a crybaby for a quarterback at that point.
I don't think that's it. It's a factor, obviously, but I think that there were enough reasons.
There was definitely more things
move
to it,
on
yeah.
from.
But I'm just saying, like,
I mean,
his departure, like, I don't know, but I just have a really bad taste in my mouth now because it kind of sucks, like, that it led to this.
I think it's fine that it was just for a season, and I don't mean a literal like one season. I mean, just for a small period of time. Like Doug Peterson, the ride in Philly was fun. I wouldn't hate it if he became like a personality just in Philadelphia once he parts ways with Jacksonville. Whether that's he somehow has a role in the Eagles organization, not as a coach, but or at least not as a head coach. I'm going to keep that as not as a coach. As long as he has a role not as a coach, but even if he wanted to do like media stuff in Philly, like I would love it. Like, but bring Angelo Cataldi back out of retirement and put him on the radio with Doug Peterson and let them just fight each other to the death like every other day. Like that's fine by me. So something like that I think would be fun. I'd love to have him back in the Philadelphia area. I'm fine that they moved on from him. I think Nick Sirianni, by and large, has done a good job, as evidenced by getting to the Super Bowl himself. But no, I feel fine with it. I just don't. I want to look back fondly on Doug's time. I want to maintain. I want everyone to maintain a positive feeling about Doug overall because I think that's the vibe that we should have.
And to the point about Sirianni becoming the head coach at the same time when Peterson was out the door and Hurts coming in, I do think that there was probably a little bit of help of like, okay, who's on my roster? Like kind of Sirianni says, and then, Peterson's going, well, we brought in this guy, Jalen, and he probably kind of gave him a work of like, here's kind of how to coach him. Here's the kind of way to approach him. Now, a lot of this had to do with Sirianni and Jalen growing together, as we've seen over the past few seasons. But initially, I think Peterson does have a small role in that. To the extent, Zach, that you would like to see Peterson back in Philadelphia, me too, because I bet you the Eagles miss ice cream Fridays. So, got to get that ice cream before it melts, fellas.
All right, so that's our tidbit on the Peterson stuff. It's prediction time. Now, be aware when you make your prediction, if you are predicting the Eagles to win, there's a likelihood that Doug Peterson does get fired after the Jaguars lose. So, who wants to start it off?
That's fine. Honestly, leave him in Philadelphia. That's fine by me. Like, just have him just hang out outside of Xfinity Live for the rest of the season.
Just chugging beer the rest of the night.
Yeah, that's fun. Have him throw out Bud Lights from the behind the bar. Like I'm not even kidding. Like that would be amazing. I think he would love it. I think we would love it. I think it'd be great.
He's like the Bill Murray of Philadelphia.
Exactly.
That would be cool. Prediction time. Yeah, let's go with I've already kind of said it numerous times. I do think Philadelphia wins this game. Let's go Philadelphia 28-17 against Jacksonville.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident in this win as well. I think it's going to be an opportunity for Philadelphia just to kind of showcase some things. And I think you're going to reach a certain point where I don't think that they're going to break that 30-point threshold only because I think they're going to be, chewing the clock by the end of this game. Right. So for me, I see Philadelphia 28, Jacksonville will go 13.
I'm going to give Jacksonville a little credit and a little fight in this game.
That was your first mistake.
Yeah, I know. It's a huge mistake. But I'll go 21-17. 21-17 Philly. Just one of those things where it's like garbage time, touchdown, brings them closer, and then it's like too little too late kind of thing.
I will say Trevor Lawrence is adept at that. Not unlike a Dak Prescott type. So there is a possibility of that. But that's honestly how I get to 13 is thinking about it's going to be 7 and then garbage time touchdown, go for 2 because it's Doug Peterson, why not? And then they miss it. So it's I do think that the garbage time touchdown is a real possibility for Jacksonville.
I guess the other part to this is over the last 2 weeks with the trending, I guess the ongoing observations here is, is there an opportunity for the third week in a row you see the backups come in to finish the game?
I would love that, and I think there's a very, very strong opportunity with Zach and myself's prediction is like if you get to that point where it's like it's garbage time stuff, like I think it's happening against the backups, and if they put the backups in, I do ask that if you're putting the backup offensive line in, please take out your starting quarterback.
Yeah, I mean I would not be surprised if they didn't take Jalen out only because. Well, they didn't last week, and the thought process behind that was they were just handing the ball off, which is stupid if you ask me. But I do
What
think
if he
that we
tripped and
could
tore his ACL? Like anything can happen nowadays.
literally anything could happen. So I would take Jalen out. I would put Tanner McKee in.
Yes,
Just bigger hands, secure the ball, hand it off.
that's what I was going to say too.
Eric went right for the juggler. Bigger hands.
That is the move that I would make if you're taking out Jalen Hurts to wind down this game.
Yeah, I mean, to the point about the handoffs, yeah, you nailed it. I think Jalen was left in there because he can hand the ball off. So you're right. Tanner McKee, I would like to see him in there. God, we are dunking on Kenny Pickett so much, and he's not really on the field anyway to do so. So
he's on future Minnesota Vikings, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. So does that mean Will Greer gets to be the number 3? Because I'm all for that.
I would love to see them flip Kenny Pickett, especially I don't get why people. This is very, very random, but I don't get why people are dogging the Jahan Dotson trade. I get he's not productive right now, but like he's a guy that's under contract for what? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach. Like
people say a name like Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, and don't even care that they, for the most part, suck anymore. Like,
they're past their prime as well.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like the D-Hop, is not like he'll be fine in Kansas City because he has Mahomes throwing to him, but like that's literally it. Like he's not going to. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't have 100 yards a game for the rest of the season. And then you talk about a guy like Adams, and it's like, all right, yeah, him and Rodgers are like starting to kind of come together, but like that last game, like listen, there's a lot of BS going on during that Thursday night football game in general, and like one touchdown is not enough to convince me that that Adams and Rodgers are back. So you look around the league, you see people like Deontay Johnson getting traded for like minimal draft pick swaps, and everyone's like, oh, John Johnson trade. It's like, well, chill. They didn't give up a third for Dotson. They moved like 80 picks in the draft, right? Dotson's younger. He was a first round pick. They have him cheap for years moving forward, or for at least next year, I should say. And to be honest with you, I don't really think like a guy like Deontay Johnson like is gonna fly off the pages in Baltimore, right?
If anything, he's just ruining the target share for Zay Flowers in my fantasy team. But
that's exactly why do you think I traded Deontay Johnson immediately following the trade? Like I just don't think any of the receivers in Baltimore are. I mean, Zay Flowers is obviously the most talented guy there, and Johnson's the best pure route runner. Like, don't get me wrong, like Johnson is talented, but like, I also don't think that I don't think Baltimore's a good fit for him, right? So you talk about these other situations of like this player's going here, this player's going there. Like, I don't know. I'm not mad at it. Like the Jahan Dotson trade, it was worth the risk to start the year. We'll see how it goes next year. This is honestly a team that eventually should go back to 12 personnel on occasion. Like run heavy 12 personnel and then play off your star wide receivers. Like that's the formula that works with this team anyway. So that's why I'm not overly worried about wide receiver 3 at all. We were not bringing in a Devontae Adams to this team to what? Be dissatisfied in the amount of.
We could kill those Adam Thielen rumors as well. I feel like it makes zero sense for Eagles to invest into wide receiver guys like. John Dotson.
I mean the thing that I would say is like if you want to bring in a sure-handed veteran for
Julio Jones,
all right, shut up. You're giving up a 6th round, and you're getting a receiver in a 7th round. Like I hear you there. I would prefer it if it's a guy who's not been hurt all year. I think that's fair to say.
I will say this about the Jets real quick. Just things haven't been right over there since Allen Lazard got hurt. So. Just saying.
On that note, Thank you all for joining us Saturday morning and dealing with our chaos. Be sure to catch the game tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Kelly Green, Shady McCoy halftime. And we'll be back Tuesday. We appreciate you guys all. I'm Brian Karen alongside Zach Chavalella, Eric Reese, and we're Flipping the Birds.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir.
Flip